Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Elizabeth Gessel, and I'm the Director of Public Programs here at Museum of the African Diaspora in San Francisco. MoAD is a contemporary art museum, and our exhibitions and programming inspire learning through the global lens of the African diaspora. I want to take a moment to acknowledge the challenging circumstances we are all in, and I hope everyone in the audience today is safe and healthy. MoAD stands in solidarity with Black Lives Matter in recognizing and condemning the ongoing systemic violence against Black people. We honor and mourn the senseless murders of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, Tony McDade, Casey Goodson Jr., Patrick Warren Sr., Andre Hill, and so many others who have lost their lives from police brutality and racial injustice, including those whose names we do not know. We want to acknowledge that MoAD's commitment to racial justice is ongoing, and as such, we will continue to say their names and to hold space and honor these victims. We would also like to acknowledge the spaces we are occupying. Though we are gathering virtually, many of us are settlers, immigrants, or descendants of those forcefully brought to this continent. Our institutions were founded upon exclusions and erasures of the indigenous peoples on whose land we are located. It is with deep respect that MoAD acknowledges that even in virtual space, we reside on unceded native lands, and thank the indigenous people of the Bay Area and beyond who have stewarded this land throughout the generations. I want to welcome you now to MoAD Online and to the program series African Diaspora Film Club, presented in partnership with Black Public Media. Our host, Cornelius Moore, is the co-director of California Newsreel, a 52-year-old social issue nonprofit film distribution and production company. He's also an independent film curator specializing in works from and about the Black world. Modeled after a book club, we expect that you will have already viewed the film when you join us for this discussion, but if you haven't seen it, please stick around. We just can't guarantee that we won't have any spoilers. I want to thank everyone here today who has joined us, with a special appreciation for those who have donated to the museum during this pandemic. We would not be able to produce this programming without your support. Today, we're very excited to be discussing the beautiful documentary Mama Gloria about Chicago's transgender icon Gloria Allen. And we are thrilled to have joining us for the discussion Director Luchina Fisher. Luchina Fisher is an award-winning writer, director, and producer. Her feature directorial debut, Mama Gloria, about a trailblazing Black transgender elder activist, premiered at the Chicago International Film Festival, won Best of Fest at Cine Odyssey, and the Jury Award for Best Documentary at TNEC International, and is making its broadcast debut on PBS. It's currently streaming on PBS. Previously, Luchina co-executive produced and co-wrote the critically acclaimed feature documentary Birthright, A War Story, which appeared in more than 70 theaters nationwide, qualified for Oscar consideration, and is currently streaming on Amazon Prime. She is the director of 2 short films and has written and produced several nationally broadcast documentaries, as well as numerous segments for television. Luchina began her career as a journalist and has written for People, the Miami Herald, the New York Times, O, the Oprah Magazine, and abcnews.com. She has also co-authored or ghostwritten several books. Luchina is a Sisters in Cinema documentary fellow and a member of Brown Girl Doc Mafia and the Black Documentary Collective. We're going to start the discussion this afternoon with Cornelius and Luchina, and we encourage everyone to participate by making comments in the chat and submitting questions through the Q&A box. And finally, please take a moment to type where you're joining us from in the chat. We love finding the diaspora in our audience. So thank you to Cornelius and Luchina for joining us today, and I'll leave it to the two of you.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
Thanks,
Welcome,
Elizabeth.
Luchina. Thank you so much for joining us and being a part of this, and for your wonderful film about the fabulous Mama Gloria.
Thank you, Cornelius, and it's good to see you. I think the last time was it last year or the year before that, 2019?
It was last year.
Was
right.
it last
Yes.
year?
Yes, it's been a year.
It feels like 10 years, like
Yeah,
dog
exactly.
years or something.
Yes. Yeah. It was where we were talking about Tongues Untied, and Marlon Riggs and the impact of, legacy of Tongues Untied.
Absolutely. That was incredible. What an incredible conversation.
Yeah. So how people are dying to know, how is Mama Gloria?
How is Mama Gloria? Oh, Mama Gloria is doing just fine. She is 75 now, and
Wow.
she's just loving all of this attention that the film is bringing to her. She was just in Essence,
Whoa.
and I know. And the Chicago Tribune, which had profiled her in 2012. And that was the article that I first read and became acquainted with her.
Okay.
They paid another visit to her just before the film's release on World Channel. And they got this amazing photograph of her. She looks incredible. So I encourage everybody to look up the Chicago Tribune and Mama Gloria, because she just looks stunning. And I think you see just how she lives her life with such joy and love, and in the present moment, where everything is a gift. I mean, she literally just texted me today and she's like, "Did you get the copy of the Chicago Tribune?" She had sent me a copy. I was like, "Yes, I got it." So she's doing very well. Thank you.
Oh, great. So did you, when you met her, how long ago was that? Did you meet her?
So she and I actually met in 2018. It's not that long ago in documentary years, right? I met her through a friend of mine who sent me the article and said, "I found your next project for you." He knew that Gloria was looking for somebody to help her write her memoir. And I had, been a ghostwriter before. And I was actually working on a book project. So I was like, I don't want to do another book project, but she needs to be seen and heard. Her story sounds incredible. And, I think, this idea of a charm school sounded so charming. But it also, there was something about it that was just like a throwback, and then this idea that she grew up in the 40s and 50s and was loved and supported by her mom and grandmother before the word transgender even existed. I thought, oh, that's really, really interesting. And I want to explore that. And so as luck would have it, I was on my way to Chicago. And I met with her during that week when I was out there, and we spent the day together. And after that day, or by the end of the day, we said, "We're doing this film, right?" And it was like, "Yep, we're doing this." And I was back the next month filming.
You're so right about how I was assuming that you had been working on this for a long time, and she's so open with you. With the film, and so you didn't need to convince her to do this. She wanted to do it. Did you ever experience the charm school? And
Unfortunately, no. The charm school, she had stopped doing the charm school in 2016. And so it was right before the play Charm came out. And so I missed the charm school. I missed the play Charm, which was based on her charm school. The playwright Phil Dawkins spent like 6 months in her classes and then wrote a play based on, her relationships with the kids and, creating some kids, some characters from the actual people that she was mentoring. But yeah, she did it for about 4 years, and she was so involved. I mean, this was something she was volunteering, she wasn't being paid to do this. She literally, said to the Center on Halsted, "I'd like to do this for these kids because they look like they could use somebody to guide them, to just love them and listen to them, because that just wasn't happening. There wasn't that kind of connection between the really young people and the seniors who were also using the center.
Okay.
A lot of the seniors didn't want to be bothered with them, but Gloria reached out because she remembered what it was to be young, and she knew that she had been loved and supported, and she had something to offer. And I think it's a wonderful message for people who are thinking about, like, well, what do I have to, give to this world? It doesn't have to be monetary. It doesn't have to be that you have, fantastic degrees, or, it's really giving yourself. And, that's what Gloria did. She did that for 4 years.
So it's just a generous spirit to do that. And I mean, maybe when you think about her connections with younger people, that helped give her energy, do you think, and look forward?
I definitely think so. I mean, she will joke that she's like, I can't keep up with all the terms that people are using today, but I do believe that she, is more in tune with the world because she is around young people. And she sees that they value that she has walked in their shoes long before, that she actually, created the path on which they're walking today. And so it is kind of this circular relationship. She gives to them and then they give to her. It just feeds each other, and it's so nurturing. It's so wonderful to see. And so I knew that, when making the film, I was, first of all, wanting to find some of those former students. And, we got lucky that we ran into one literally
on the street, right?
Walking down the street. I know. Because, there was so much confidentiality, like the center could not help us, they had to keep confidential, these kids' identities. So we couldn't go through that route. And so we got fortunate that we found, one student. And then I wanted to just get her around other young people, knowing that she goes to speak at colleges all the time, that, she's invited to speak to groups. I was like, well, I want to follow her when she goes to speak with one of these groups. And, it just happened to be about Face Theater, which is this, they have a young group for queer youth. And, just seeing that whole connection between them as she's telling stories and they're listening so intently. It was just beautiful to witness. And that is how she is with every young people, all young people. I mean, I've just seen it as we've been promoting the film, like people lose their minds, to talk to Mama Gloria. And she just loves it.
So who did you make the film for? And what did you hope the film would achieve?
Well, I made the film for everybody because I really do feel this is the film for all ages. I encourage families to watch it together. I have a 10-year-old. He's seen it a couple of times. And, a 15-year-old. And then I have a daughter who is 17 and she identifies as trans. And, she transitioned just before her 13th birthday. So, of course, I had her in my mind as I'm making the film. I'm thinking about, what do I want Gia to know about the people who came before her? And then what do I want her to know about her future, especially as a Black trans woman? And, interestingly enough, as I was making the film, as I was filming in Chicago, I got a text message from my daughter. At the time, she was 15, and she sent me a message saying, "My life is half over." And I was like, "What?" And she sent me this study from Washington, D.C., that said the average life expectancy of a Black trans woman in DC is 30 or 32. And I had to just keep myself together while I was filming. And then when we cut, I said to Gloria, I said, "My daughter sent me this text message and I don't know what to say." And she said, "Well, you tell her that Gloria said you're going to have an amazingly long and brilliant life. And I only hope I live long enough to see it." And I thought, that is why I'm making this film. I'm making this film for my daughter. I'm making it for her generation to have hope, that they will have a long and beautiful life like Gloria's, that they will believe that they can have the same opportunities in life as anybody else. And so, that was really driving me to get this film out, knowing that, Black trans women especially face a lot of violence, increasing violence and discrimination. So, that was one audience, but I also knew that there's really statistics that say nearly 80% of Americans don't personally know someone who's trans, or don't think they know somebody who's transgender, right? And that's a pretty high number. And yet the headlines that we see, the legislation we see coming out of some 30 states in America that have trans people at the center of these bans on medical care and participation in sports in high school and middle school, for a population that is so small, to be at the center of these cultural debates and vitriol is really quite disturbing. And to know that 80% of folks don't really know somebody who's trans, that's a problem. And I think, we have to be able to replace opinions with experience. And I really want as many people as possible to experience meeting Mama Gloria. Because I think once you meet Mama Gloria, you kind of see like, hey, she's a lot like me, you start to see the humanity in her. And that's what it's about.
Well, you say in the film that they're estimated at 1.5 million transgender people in the U.S. and that 14% are seniors. And I'm curious, where was some of that information and documentation from, so that people can have that information and explore more?
Sure. Well, there's a study that's often done from UCLA. I think it's the Williams Foundation that keeps track of the numbers. The numbers that I provided were from a study, I think from the National Gay and Lesbian Task Force from 2011. So these numbers are probably a little bit larger. I mean, what we're seeing now, Gen Z, I think, The current generation, they're saying 1 in 6 may be LGBTQ or identify as LGBTQ. So the growth in the numbers of trans people generally is on the younger end of the age spectrum. But there are these seniors, about 14%, according to, the National Gay and Lesbian Task Force, who make up the part of the transgender community. But many of that 14% don't transition until after age 55. So Gloria is quite unique in that, she transitioned before Stonewall. She transitioned, right after high school. And so she has been living her life openly as a trans woman for many years. And that you do see more rarely. And I think we are seeing growing numbers of LGBTQ elders. Certainly I think by the year 2030, SAGE, estimates, I think I forget if it's like 6 million. I mean, we're going to be seeing more growing numbers of older, LGBTQ folks. And I think, understanding some of the issues around aging and being LGBTQ is going to be much, is quite important. Too often you will find that older people, who identify as LGBTQ may return to the closet as they're aging, because they do come from a generation where there was perhaps less acceptance than there is today. And, that's just one of the issues.
And if they would lose some of their independence in aging and they need support, and they may be in an institution or a situation where they don't feel safe being who they've been.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Before Gloria moved into the Town Hall Apartments, which is this incredible senior living facility that is only the second in the nation that's LGBTQ friendly. And I believe it's 70% of the population identifies as LGBTQ and 30% do not. And so, already they're in a situation where, they are in the majority, and they have the support of social workers. They have the Center on Halsted, which is right down the street. They're next to a grocery store. And what a difference it makes. Gloria, in her previous apartment, was actually harassed and bullied by, somebody, who kept, just was like, you're trans, what does that mean? And, just this person was really giving her a hard time in this previous senior building, and nobody was doing anything about it. She ended up calling the police, and that's the thing about Gloria. She will not be bullied, at any age. And, she's like, I was never in the closet, and I'm not about to go into the closet now. But it's beautiful that she could get into the Town Hall Apartments. And I think we need more of those kinds of living spaces, for LGBTQ people as they age.
Elizabeth just put in the chat a couple of links to resources in the Bay Area. TGI Justice, which is an organization in San Francisco led by Black trans folks and trans folks of color, and also the Transgender Law Center, which is although it's based in Oakland, is a national organization. So I want to talk about Gloria's relationship with her family, that her biological family, her chosen family, in particular her biological family, because it seems as though she had support from her mother, her grandmother. Her grandmother was making clothes for drag queens, and in the 40s, and so that she seemed to have a supportive environment, and that seemed that, from what I know, that's might be quite unusual, and that is one of the maybe things that makes Gloria so special too, is her background.
I agree. I'm sure, there are other stories of that kind of support, but I had not seen that on screen, or people telling those kinds of stories. And so I was very much struck by that. That was something that really I could connect with as, mother of a trans daughter who, I'm very supportive, and there was no question that I was going to love my daughter and support her, on her journey. And I saw that in Gloria's story as well, and thought, that's a story I want to tell. We do have, a number of stories out there of rejection and trauma and violence, and those things exist too. But I think we do forget, and we just don't hear those stories of support. And yet that support is so critical, because it really is the difference between life and death in many cases. And studies show that even when transgender youth have, a higher suicide ideation rate than their, cisgender peers, when it comes to love and support from their families, that rate drops down to normal, basically to the same rate as, cisgender peers. So it just goes to show, like, that support is really critical. And so I really wanted to show that, but I think what's particularly special about, Gloria's family is that, they came from this world of show business,
Oh, okay.
right? On the South
Even
Side.
her cousins too. I mean, the cousins
Well,
we see
not
in the film.
not necessarily her cousins, but her mother was a showgirl.
Jet centerfold, yes.
Exactly, in a jet model centerfold, right? Everybody got, if you got Jet magazine, you remember the centerfold, right? Right in the center of the magazine. Gloria's mother was in there in the 60s. And but she, performed at Club de Lisa and other, show clubs on the South Side, where there were, female impersonators and drag queens, and what it would have been considered trans performers, at that time. So she was already in that milieu. And then her grandmother, as well as a seamstress, was sewing these costumes for the drag balls that were prominent, from the 30s through to the 1980s on the South Side. And so I think, that kind of exposure, also allowed them to be sort of more open to, experiencing, Gloria and what she was going through, and just being open to that and protective of her. They were very protective of her. And so, yes, she definitely had a special upbringing.
And I think why I don't remember if I saw another cut of your film, and that Gloria was talking about her. I think it was her mother or grandmother, when she would be going out, and they would say, girl, you can't, you're not gonna wear that. Put something else on, right? Come here, let me fix you up. Okay.
Exactly. I mean, who doesn't love that, you know, and their mother, you know, like, you're not putting that on. But, you know, in the case of Gloria, you know, where she's having to learn how to, you know, put on the makeup and the clothing, you know, it was like, yeah, they would be like, no, sis, you go back and do it again.
So with the, you mentioned the drag scene in the balls in Chicago. What did you, is there documentation of that, pictures of that you saw and you know drew on with the film? You know, and was that difficult to find those resources?
It was difficult.
Mm-hmm.
I knew that they existed. I saw, you know, found some images online. There's a great site called Out History, which, you know, tells the different histories of cities in different cities throughout the US. And so when it came to Chicago, you know, they had, you know, sections on Bronzeville, which was the neighborhood that Gloria grew up in. And there were some images from Ebony magazine. So I knew that the Black press was covering these balls. And so, you know, I went, you know, right away to Johnson Publishing because Gloria's mother, having been in Jet magazine, you know, I knew I wanted to get those images. And, you know, they just happened to have also images from the Finney's balls and, you know, some stories of cross-dressers, as they refer to them. And then pleasantly surprised to see outtakes from Gloria's mother's photo shoot for Jet magazine. So, you know, that was, you know, a wonderful bonus. But I still couldn't find like these images that I had seen online. And I knew they existed. And so, you know, once when I was down in Chicago filming, I don't know what made me like sort of think to look at the public library. There is an archive on the South Side at the Woodson Library. And I just can't even remember what the connection was, but I ended up calling them, got lucky, got a librarian who knew what I was talking about. And she said, you know, I think I just put away some images like that. And, you know, they were not listed under, you know, trans or LGBTQ, but they did have the word Finney's balls in them. And so she pulled those images for me. I got down there. There were like between 50 and 100 images taken in the 50s by Tony Roden, who was a photographer for the Chicago Defender. And they were just incredible. I just about cried. I was so happy. It was like striking gold. And, you know, they were just so beautiful and, you know, really loving. It was not, you know, they were, these women, you know, were just posing proudly, you know, for these balls. And so, yeah, that was powerful to be able to get that footage or excuse me, those images and, you know that I could bring to life this history that Gloria was talking to me about, that she had lived through and I knew existed. And I knew had existed even before, you know, the balls in Harlem that, you know, were made famous by Paris is Burning. And, you know, it's like, I knew that Chicago had this rich history. I just had to find the proof of that. And I did. So that was really exciting.
Well, that's great. Those are great images and exciting history. I'm going to assume that you got introduced to Gloria's cousins through Gloria. But I'm among the remarkable things in the film is the I guess the luncheon where Gloria was with her high schoolmates, her prom date. How did you arrange that? How did you negotiate that with everybody? I'm fascinated by that.
Yes, that was tricky. I can remember Gloria saying to me, "Oh, we're supposed to have our luncheon, our reunion luncheon, around the time I was planning to film." And I said, "Oh my goodness, I'd love to go to that." And she's like, "Well, I'm going to give you the name of the person who arranges everything." And that was Ron Davis. And so I remember talking to Ron. I think I was with my daughter shopping for clothes. And so I'm like talking to him while she's in the dressing room. And I'm like, "Yes, this is what we want to do." And, trying to explain. And he's like, "Well, why are you doing something on Gloria?" Like, she's just a regular person. Like, I don't understand.
Gloria's always been going to these events, these
She
gatherings?
had gone to one other. So she had been to one before. That wasn't her first one. I feel like the one before had been like a year or two back. So it had been a while since she had been to one. And he wasn't really understanding like why so much interest in her. And but he knew that she had transitioned to Gloria. And so he said, "Well, I'm going to put it out there to the group and see how they feel about you filming there. But we don't want, this is our reunion. We don't want it taken over by Gloria's story." And I was like, "Of course, we will just come for a little bit and then we'll get out of your way, and maybe we'll film at the beginning and then we can film at the end, but we'll let you have your business of your reunion." And that's what we did. And everybody was cool about it. Alice, whom I feel Gloria had Gloria told me that her prom date was going to be there. I actually don't know that she had told me before that Alice was her prom date. I don't think we knew that until we went to film. And, she must have said it as we were on our way or something, because I knew to ask Alice about it. But I know it was all like happening around the same time. And I was like, pretty shocked by the fact that we were going to have her prom date there too. Because yes, I did know, because I asked Alice to come early. That's what it was. So I had just, found all this out, as I'm talking to Gloria. And yeah, everybody was really cool about it. And I think, I don't know how nobody seemed guarded. I mean, they were all just very much like, really cool. And maybe that's, that age. I don't know.
There was only one person I recognized as a man there. I mean, it's all women there, so maybe that had something to do with.
Well, there were two guys there, so we ended up having to cut, a few things. But there were 3 guys total, and the rest were women. But yes, there was this conversation about, how the men treated her versus the women in school. And, it got a little touchy there for a minute. And yet, everybody seemed to handle it all with humor and kind of forgot that we were filming. And so, I felt like we captured some really, it felt so authentic, to their experience, of being a particular age and, having gone through school, knowing Gloria one way and then, experiencing her only the second time as Gloria.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was quite something. It felt very comfortable. It was very enjoyable and heartwarming to watch them. That gathering, and and how the interaction between Gloria and everybody. Another thing about, I think, the uniqueness of Gloria is her employment situation. I just finished reading Janet Mock's memoir, Redefining Realness. Janet Mock introduced her in the beginning of the film at the event where Gloria was honored. And, Janet Mock is, quite successful now, and, in magazines, and has produced films. I think she was one of the directors of or writers of Pose. And even she was talking about how she had to, just to make money, she had to do some sex work. But Gloria, we hear about her having jobs. She worked at the hospital, before she transitioned, but also when she wasn't transitioning, she had a job, just a kind of regular job, and they were like, okay, you do a good job, and sure, if you want to come the way you are, just come. So I just sort of think that's incredibly unique. And I'd like to hear what you have to say about what you know about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it is remarkable. And Gloria certainly, she did at some points, do sex work as well. And she would say that, there were times where she felt she had to, and then there were times where, she really didn't have to. I think she knew that she was smart, and her parents wanted her to go to college. Her mother had gone to college. And she went to college for a year before she dropped out, because, as she put it, she wanted to experience life. And but she still got a job at the University of Chicago Hospital, and she was working as an X-ray technician, and she worked with this doctor. And part that we couldn't include in the film because we just didn't have time to do everything, but there was a doctor there who Gloria could sing. She was a really talented singer. And this doctor loved her voice, and I think was helping sort of fund or put together a band. And they traveled to New York at one point, and Gloria kind of stayed and thought she might try to make it as a singer.
Oh, yeah.
And that was actually when she ended up, doing sex work, because, she didn't really make it as a singer, but she stayed for a while, and couldn't get work, and, ended up, sort of doing sex work with other trans people at the time.
Well, the problem is that also when you can't have, quote unquote, I guess, regular employment, it puts people in a situation where they're doing, quote unquote, illegal, and they get harassed by the police and imprisoned, and all those sort of things that certainly are unnecessary, but they sort of it's an overlay on people's lives, and that,
Right.
I mean, it was refreshing that was not the bulk of Gloria's story, even though the reality is that confronts a lot of trans people.
That's right. That's right. It definitely was not the bulk of her experience, her working life experience. And, when she came back to Chicago, she was able to, get that job back at the hospital for a while. But she said she didn't think she could transition and still work there. And so she left, and she took a job at a motel, sort of working at the reception desk. And she did ask that owner if she could come as her true identity, as a woman. And the employer said yes. And that was the beginning for her of being able to live and work as the gender she identified as. And, years later, she, did some work as an in-home health aide. And, actually, interestingly, the person whose apartment she cleans is a professor, I think at Loyola, and a history professor. And it wasn't until the article in the Tribune that I first referenced in 2012 came out that he even realized she was trans. Like he didn't even know any of her backstory. And then he read this article and he couldn't believe it. And then she started telling him, well, I'm actually writing down my own story. I've been, writing my memoir. And I could use some help. And that's when he got on his network of, academics in the Chicago area, and it found its way to my friend, and he reached out to me. So that is, really incredible that, she has been able to really navigate, as a Black trans woman for so many years in the working world. And she, in the legal working world, right? She was still harassed by police, even when she wasn't, working in sex work. There was this, belief that just because she was a Black trans woman, that, and she was, on the north side of Chicago, that she was there because she was a prostitute.
The north side of Chicago, meaning what, for people who don't know Chicago?
Oh, right. So the north side of Chicago is, kind of the more, the white area of Chicago where, more whites live. And also in the section where she lives now, it's called Boys Town. It's really the LGBTQ hub in Chicago. That's where the Center in Halstead is. But, that was also a place where, there were, a lot of nightclubs, and there would be, some sex workers there too. And so she would often get harassed by the police, whose precinct it was where the town hall apartments are today. They turned the old precinct into the town hall apartments. So she's like, I'm living in the place where I once was held in jail because they thought I was doing sex work.
Reimagining criminal justice, or whatever term you want to use. Yeah, turn the police station or the prison into housing. Yeah, that sounds just about right.
Does that sound good? Absolutely.
So what about the folks in the church she's been going to? The people there know that Gloria's a transgender woman?
Well, interestingly, I said to Gloria, I'm like, well, do you want me to let them know? Are you going to say something? Do you want me to tell them anything? And she's like, well, we'll just see how it goes. And, maybe I'll see some people I know, and, they'll let folks know, or they won't. And and so, we cleared everything with the church, and, we just simply said, this is a woman who's coming back to her neighborhood church that she went to as a young person. And they were like, great, wonderful. And she did end up seeing some people who knew her, from before. But I'm not sure that the vast majority really knew.
So when you just said, I'm making this film about one of the people in the congregation, and is it okay to film here?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. And she belonged to that church. She sang in the choir, and she attended that church for some years, and she did attend it as an adult as well. So she had been there as Gloria previously. But yes, I was like, Gloria, how much do you want me to tell them, about the film and, why we're making the film? And she's like, that's my business. And, like, if they recognize me, great. If they don't, whatever.
Okay.
But yes, it was, it's just lovely to see again that reception, from the minister, and the people who recognized her were just, really delighted to see her.
I don't see any questions. If there are, Elizabeth, let me know. But I was going to ask the response to the film so far, because you've shown it at film festivals, and I'm curious about in the Chicago community. How has the film been received?
Yeah, I think Chicago folks are loving it, and there are even some people in Chicago who don't know Mama Gloria. And they're like, thank you for telling me about this, treasure right here in our community. We premiered at the Chicago International Film Festival. So that was really, I couldn't think of a better place. And then, shortly after that, we did our first theatrical screening at the Gene Siskel Film Center alongside the Black Harvest Film Festival. And I know there are plans to, bring the film there again in the summer and fall, and hopefully, maybe some in-person outdoor screenings where, Gloria could, attend. I mean, I think, what's magical is being able to experience Gloria in person as well, and you just never know what she's going to say. And she's such a joy to be around. And then, we've also had our first international screening at BFI Flair in London. And because that was virtual, the entire UK got to see the film. And we've been just blown away by the reception in Britain. The reviews have been incredible. And so many audience folks who are just tweeting at us and telling us how much they love the film, and some interest from distributors there. It's been really exciting because I have my own connection with Britain, having gone to film and television school there. And so, yeah, it feels pretty special to have that be where we premiered internationally.
Great. And now there are a couple comments. I'll read them.
Okay.
I'm Michael, a white cisgender man from Chicago, a Mama Gloria fan. Thank you, Miss Fisher, for sharing Mama Gloria, the queen of a legend, story with the world. Yeah. And from Yiva, I had a question about how it was possible to make this wonderful film in such a short period. I was also impressed that there was footage that seemed that seemed to occur since the pandemic started, as I saw people wearing masks in some scenes. What is your secret? Thanks so much for this beautiful film.
We actually did not film after the pandemic started, because we did end up having to do some, we had to do some dubbing after the pandemic. So my DP, who lives in Chicago, he was able to go to Gloria's home and just do those, pick up those lines. But, we really, because of the pandemic, we kind of had to decide, like, are we going to try to finish the film now, like, or do we see if we can wait and go back another time, to get some of the stuff that we thought, we might get. Ultimately it was decided to just try to, finish editing the film. Yeah. And I'm glad we did get it out, because yeah. I mean, look, Gloria's in her 70s. I really did not want to, and this goes to the first question, how was I able to do it in such a short time? I didn't want things to drag out too long, because I wanted her to be able to enjoy touring with the film and, promoting it. We thought we would be getting on planes and touring.
Right. Yeah.
Instead, we're getting on Zooms, but that, the beauty is she's meeting many more people, or many more people are meeting Gloria. So that's a wonderful thing. And, honestly, originally I thought I was going to make a short. I thought, I really wanted to make a film that wasn't going to take too long. And I wanted to really focus in on a character-driven piece. And I was really inspired by Laura Checkaway's film, Edith and Eddie, about the oldest interracial couple in America who married at 95 and 96. And I loved how, it was this love story that became a story of elder abuse. And yet it was told, I think, in 20 minutes. So it was very compact. And I thought, oh, if I could do, something intimate and small and, get it done in, not too long a time. But I tell you, when we went out to start filming Gloria, and we were at the church, we were at, the reunion, I didn't even put in the stand-up that she did. She did, she would go do stand-up. Okay. Yes. It was like, I just realized, like, the film kept growing and growing. And I just said, you know what, let me see where it's leading me. I have an idea in my mind, but, obviously the film is trying to do something else. And that's it, the story wanted to be told, and it became a feature.
Were there DVD extras or archival footage for an archive? You have a lot of rich material.
You're right. I need to create the DVD extras.
So, it's on the World Channel, and PBS. Is it in distribution any other way?
Well, we are also talking, to Reverie about possible distribution. So, stay tuned. There may be more, for Pride that we'll be announcing. And certainly people can go to Mama Gloria film.com and, keep up with us. We'll be at other festivals. We're at the Kansas City Film Festival this week. So people can see the theatrical cut, which is 76 minutes, and the World Channel broadcast cut is 56 minutes. So it's a little more compact and doesn't have as much rich archival as the theatrical cut.
But before we let you go, and thank you so much for your time this afternoon, I want to hear about what you're working on now. I understand that you're working on a project about your brother, Gary Fisher, and please tell us something about him, because he does have a Bay Area connection.
He does have a Bay Area connection. His writings are at the San Francisco Public Library. They are being held there. And a year after he died, he was an artist and writer and at University of California, Berkeley. A year after he died, a book of his writings called Gary in Your Pocket were published by Duke University Press. Eve Sedgwick, one of the co-founders of Queer Theory, was his editor on the book. And the film I started making a couple of years after he died. I filmed maybe 30 plus hours of footage. And then, you know, kind of got overtaken by grief and life and you know, became a mom of 3, including a trans daughter. And what I've come to see is this journey that I've been on as a sibling of a gay brother who passed away from AIDS, and a queer sister who lives in Oakland with my sister-in-law, and the mother of a trans daughter. That, you know, my journey kind of reflects in some ways the successes and setbacks of the Black LGBTQ community. And so I think that's where the film is headed, to sort of be this personal documentary. And I just got, you know, my first grant from Brown Girl Doc Mafia.
Right.
Yay. So yeah, I'm beginning the process of, you know, really developing that and you know, putting together a teaser, and there's been some interest around that. So yeah, I'll be working on that. And so that's a very different film that's going to be taking me some 20 plus years to finish.
Oh, probably not that long, right?
Probably not that long, but I did start it more than 20 years ago.
Okay.
Yes.
Do you have a website that people could follow
I
you
don't
or something?
personally yet. I've been so busy, but I am going to make a website. But certainly you can find me on mamagloriafilm.com. You can write to me there, and follow me on Twitter and Instagram, Luchina Fisher on Instagram and Luchina on Twitter. But yes,
and you'll probably maybe do a crowdfunding campaign. And so we
I
can
may need
on
to
top
do
of that.
that.
Yeah.
It's true. It's true. I did that with Mama Gloria, and to great success. It was, you know, and just the people responding is so rewarding, because, you know, they are on the journey with you. And that's what's been so great, is just knowing all the love and support for this film, and, you know, to know that these people have been on this journey with me, and, you know, now the film is out in the world. So yeah, maybe I will do another crowdfunding.
Right. Thank you, Luchina Fisher, for your work that you're doing, and for Mama Gloria. And we really appreciate you being with us this afternoon.
Thank you, Cornelius. Sure. Good to see you as always.
Yeah, okay. Bye.
Thank you so much, Luchina, and thank you, Cornelius. I just want to also thank Black Public Media for co-sponsoring, co-presenting this program with us, and just let everybody know that our next African Diaspora Film Club will be on Sunday, May 16th, and we'll be featuring the film Bakoso, Afrobeats de Cuba, which is about African Caribbean fusion music genre by the wonderful film director Eli Jacobs Fantauzi. So please join us for that. And I look forward to your next film, Luchina. We'll have to have you back, hopefully in person at the museum.
That would be fantastic, Elizabeth. I have not been before, so I'm looking forward to coming.
Wonderful.
The museum. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Take care, everybody.
Thank you. Thanks, Elizabeth. Thank you, Luchina. Bye.
Thanks. Have a great night.
You too.
Bye.